Thanks for tuning into this earnings broadcast. The headline in the Edelweiss Q4 results was the large impairment, but details on the outlook of asset quality, liquidity, and capital position are important. A small cursory check suggests that capital and liquidity position are comfortable, but what the asset quality and provisioning could look like are very important monitorables. Let's talk about all of that with Mr. Rashesh Shah, who joins us right now to talk about the quarter 4, quarter 1, and the outlook ahead. Mr. Shah, so good having you. Thanks much for taking the time out. Hope all is safe.
Thank you, Neeraj. Good to see you.
Likewise. Likewise. Okay, can we talk about the quarter gone by? I'm presuming that everything is safe and sound with health and everything. Let's talk about Edelweiss and the financial health. Can you talk about the quarter gone by and a bit about quarter 1 too, if possible? Because I understand that the impairment is a buffer against future issues that could come in. But if there were no large fundamental reasons for stress to come in, the impairment wouldn't have been taken in the first place. How do you quantify what happened in the quarter?
See, as you know, in the last couple of years since ILFS happened, I think that credit portfolios and all, and so what we decided is one to revise the estimated credit loss methodology. Idea is to look forward, see what would be the lifetime loss on a particular credit portfolio, and prepone the whole thing. So that is what we had announced even pre-COVID that this is what we are going to do. And then COVID happened. So this impairment that we have taken, and this is impairment, this is not a cash loss. This is a markdown of the portfolio. This we have taken because even COVID, we do think is going to have an impact. I think a lot of us have a choice to postpone the COVID impact because you can say COVID is uncertain and it will not be before October or December. You will know the real impact of COVID. But our board decided that while we are revising the estimated credit loss methodology, and whatever we can estimate on COVID, and so we have taken almost 1,000 crore impact, which is only COVID related, and not just on the credit book. It is also on our asset reconstruction company, also on our investments and all of that, because I do think that COVID will have impact for everybody, for banks, for NBFCs, or you can choose to do it now. We chose to do it now. So I think it was both the revision of the estimated credit loss as per Ind AS, but also the COVID impact. And the good thing was there is, as we have been scaling down our wholesale business, as you know, we have stated policy, the wholesale credit business will come down and will go to zero. So at the peak, we were almost 20,000 crore. It's now come down to almost 10,000 crore. And in the next 2 years, we want to make wholesale into zero. And as we bring wholesale down, it is releasing a lot of capital for us. So even this quarter, even with impairment, our capital adequacy still stands at 21%. So we are more than adequately capitalized. And as we are releasing capital by reducing the wholesale book, we have more and more capital available. And we have no intention of pulling capital out of the business because it's in the credit entity. So whether you are at 25% capital adequacy or 21, it should not matter for the business. But if you take impairment in the future, at least you are well covered.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I would want to seek some details there too, but before that, a few questions that I just wanted some clarity on. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but when I went to the release and the etc., you probably haven't clearly given the moratorium loans as a percentage of the total credit book. Can you give some details thereof, Mr. Shah?
So our average moratorium for first quarter was about 33% of the borrowers have taken the moratorium. It has come down by June to about 25% as we have talking to customers and all. And whatever moratorium impact we could estimate because of COVID reason has also been included in the impairment. So I think whatever we saw for the first quarter, we have estimated what part of that could lead to impairment and provided for that also. A lot of uncertainty around moratorium is on the retail side. I think wholesale side for last 2 years taken the impact of that. So I don't think there is too much uncertainty on the wholesale side because of COVID, and we have already taken that into account. I think retail, there could be some uncertainty, but we have tried to estimate as much of that. And usually moratorium is a good indication, but we started off at 40% in April, then came down to 35. Now we are at 25, because we found that a lot of customers had the cash, but they were conserving it. And when they got educated that, opting for moratorium is not good because they're paying high interest rate and all, and holding cash on the other side, a lot of customers have chosen to pay. And a lot of customers are fairly now after June are fairly positive about business recovery coming back. April and May was a shock for most of them.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, can you give the total credit book number as well? Because you used to give the number. I think I've missed it this time. So what's the credit book across the subsidiaries? Do you intend to reduce it further? And I think you mentioned that you will take wholesale down to zero. But for the remainder book, what's the split between wholesale as well as retail?
So I think our total credit book is approximately 20,000 crore now, out of which about 12 is wholesale and 8 is retail, or about 11. We have been broadly 50% retail. 50 credit book used to be 33,000 crore. That has now come down to 20,000 crores. So we have degrown quite a bit, but we have released equity. Our borrowings have come down from a peak borrowings of almost 48,000 crore. Our borrowings are now at about 33,000 crore, and we plan to bring it down to 25,000 crore by end of March. Our idea is we want to be asset light. We have decided that given the experience of the last couple of years, a large balance sheet for a credit business is not a good idea. We have our strengths and all, but we would rather partner with banks rather than expand our balance sheet and unnecessarily put that stress. So we have a choice of moving to asset management model. So we have moved a lot of our credit strategies into asset management because we think in an AIF format or in an asset management format, where it's client, third party, money, you don't carry ALM risk, and you can also manage NPAs a lot better, because in a close-ended fund, NPAs are much easier to manage than in an especially high-yielding credit, anything that is more than 12-13% fund format rather than in an NBFC format. And that is what our endeavor has been, to bring down the wholesale book, but we are moving it to asset management format. Our assets under management in credit strategies are now 21,000 crores. So we have a lot of third-party investors, global investors, institutional investors who are keen to participate. And I think that is a trend that is happening. A lot of this will move from NBFCs and banks into fund format.
Okay, yeah. I mean, what the rationale, aside of the ones that you obviously mentioned right now for changing that strategy, Mr. Shah, would also be that it may not be the hectic paced growth that you may have shown in the past, but it will be a more stable growth in a better manageable format.
Absolutely. I think credit, our idea is, I think as liquidity conditions were easy, credit growth was easier, but we saw last 2 years, in fact, earlier liquidity tightening never lasted for more than 3 to 6 months. Now it has been almost 2 years. And having seen 2 years of liquidity tightening, we do think that liquidity risk, ALM risk, can really creep upon you if you have a large balance sheet size as an NBFC. More than 2 lakh crores of business, and that is a good quality growth because it is not dependent on balance sheet and risk capital, and investors are then participating directly into strategy rather than going via your balance sheet. So I think increasingly we think the NBFC model will have to be asset light. You will partner with banks, and on the other side you will do asset management. So on one side, NBFCs partnering with banks should not become too asset heavy, and other sides, a few strategies moving into fund format, so that you are not going through the balance sheet and releasing your risk capital. So I think the future for NBFCs and financial services should be asset light, capital light, but more skill heavy.
Okay, interesting. Just a couple of other updates before we get to what the update could be like. The expected credit loss change, and that's been the big talking point for Edelweiss this quarter, isn't it, Mr. Shah? I think in one place in the release you said that it includes the COVID impact, but if I'm not wrong, it also says that there is no change yet on account of COVID. So my question largely is that, is this change on account of economic weakness before COVID, or does it include the expected issues after COVID as well?
So the ECL part, which is about, I think, 1,200 crores, is pre-COVID, and that is what we had announced last time. That's why, for sake of transparency, we have split that up. So about 1,100 crore was pre-COVID, just changing the ECL methodology. And the old methodology of NPA was, you call something NPA, then you provide over 3 or 4 years. In the ECL methodology, the idea is to prepone and mark to market immediately. It's more like an equity mark to market approach, and that is what Ind AS is also allowing you. So by changing the methodology, we had announced this in the last quarter, which was before COVID. So the 1,200 crore estimate that we appointed a global firm to do it for us has come about pre-COVID, and then we have added, as I said, another almost 1,000 crore, which is as a result of COVID. So it comes from two sides, and in our investor presentation, we have broken it up and
Okay. A couple of things that brokerages have said, they want clarity from you in the con call. And they have said that this kind of look like a bit of a, not a red flag really, but a point of concern. One, that selling down of the loans that you've done, and it's happened at a discount on the, I believe on the real estate side, it must be builder loans. How much of this could get replicated, if not replicated, and shown again in the future? Because that book, for not just for you, but for everybody else, would clearly be under stress. So one, update on that, and two, a comment from Morgan Stanley. The Morgan Stanley report today, I read that, Mr. Shah. It says that the aggregate loan book of the three credit entities reported works out to about 19 billion versus 28 billion, suggesting significant asset rundown and asset sales during the quarter. Would you comment on both of these?
yeah, I think, as I said, I think asset scale down in NBFC is a stated strategy. We are going to become asset light. So I think we have indicated we'll continue to degrow on the NBFC asset side, because I think, as I said, the liquidity conditions are such, the risk conditions are such that this is not the time for growth. So this is very stated, and I agree with the Morgan Stanley report that we have scaled down the loan book size, clearly. On the sorry, I seem to, yeah, on the impairment. So if you see, we have done asset sell down in June, but we have taken impairment in March. So even the asset sell down that we did recently, we have taken about 25% markdown on that. That markdown we took first, and then we did the asset sell down. In fact, the idea of taking the impairment is to make the asset sale much easier. So whatever asset sale related markdown that we have anticipated, we have already taken the impairment in that, so that at the time of sale, you don't have to take the impairment. So what we are selling in June, we had already marked down in March.
But you won't need to do any further sales on which there will not be any further impairments or markdowns.
No, I think whatever sales we want to do, and if there is impairment related, we have already anticipated and taken that, because the board had said that try and do it in one shot, because, as I said, this is a mark to market approach where you have marked down your assets, what is the real sale value, so that in the future also when you want to sell, it's actually very different approach than an NPA approach. In NPA approach, you provide in stages, while here you think, and currently there is still a lot of confusion because of that. But I think the Ind AS model is the right one, where you take the markdown as and when the asset impairment happens, rather than spread it over the next few quarters.
What about business growth, Mr. Shah? I presume that you, in your presentation, you of course mentioned that you will raise some equity capital in the wealth and the asset management business as well in the next 6 to 8 weeks. You might do further fundraising of 1,000 to 1,500 crores, if I'm reading it right, in your subsidiary EFSL as well. What kind of funding requirement raises that you would do, and how would the next 3 quarters shape up for Edelweiss? Or how would even quarter one have shaped up?
The idea is to make sure we raise enough equity. So as you have said, in the last Here also, we have raised enough equity in our credit business and in our asset and wealth management business. We've actually announced equity raise of about 2,500 crore, which coincidentally is equal to the impairment we have taken. So in a way, whatever impairment we have taken has been offset with equity that we have raised in the last 1 year. Our idea is that going forward for growth and all, we'll need equity, especially in asset and wealth management business. And we see a lot of interest in that. We have more than ample equity. In fact, we have more than ample equity. In fact, we will have access 21% to 28% even now in the credit businesses. So we don't need more equity in the credit business. But I think in our asset management, wealth management business, in our insurance business, we will look to raise capital so that we can continue to grow that. All this business continue to grow well. In fact, April, May, June has been fairly good for our insurance businesses, for our asset and wealth management businesses. I think even going forward, ARC, we remain optimistic and positive. So except credit, where there will be degrowth, I think all the other businesses we have continued to grow even last year, and we will continue to grow.
You don't foresee, one last question, Mr. Shah, you don't foresee any large minefield kind of scenarios for Edelweiss going ahead after what you've done at the end of Q4, which is take this impairment?
Yeah, we have tried to anticipate that, and obviously, I mean, we are hoping that COVID and economy and all recovers. I don't think there'll be a big wave two, which so given all of that, but we do think COVID will have in the next 3 or 4 quarters, which is COVID related. Now you can choose to wait, you can choose to be certain, you can do it, maybe proactively, you can do it a priori. That is, each one will follow their own strategy. It's also a function of how much excess equity you have. So if you see a lot of banks and all have started raising equity, because the idea is that if you have equity, you can take impairment. The reality of credit is you can't take impairment if you don't have equity, because equity is required for impairment. We were fortunate we had excess equity because, as you said, our credit book came down from 28,000 crore to 19,000 crore, which has released a lot of equity, because for every 1,000 crore that you scaled on your book, you release 150 crores of equity, and that equity is available for impairment. So I think everybody expects that COVID-related impairment will come, but I think we have tried to anticipate that. I don't think there is any big other minefield, because we have seen enough minefield in the last. I think India will come back. It will take time, but I think by cutting interest rate, injecting liquidity, all this program, but it will take time. Now we expect recovery to be post December or maybe post March for real growth to come back. Until then, the idea is, and actually that is our strategy also. We have constantly said what we can do now so that we are ready for the post COVID growth. And even if you have to make hard decisions, you have to make tough decisions. As you said, it's not easy to take impairment and have our first loss in a history. But because it's impairment and it doesn't have a cash impact, and we are fairly okay on the liquidity side, we said it's a good time to take this down and start thinking post COVID. I think the most important thing, because the next 3 months and 6 months are going to be uncertain, but I think you have to plan for the next 3 and 5 years. And our whole focus is on what we can do now to become stronger in the post COVID world.
Okay, well, wish you all the best for that. I think the big takeaway is that what's been shown in Q4 will not get replicated, and I think people could take heart from that. But would look forward to talking to you more once these other quarter numbers come out as well, Mr. Shah. All the best and stay safe. Yes, thanks for tuning into this conversation.
Okay, Neeraj. Thank you.